Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent computer role-playing game. This week I'm taking a look at a simple roguelike from a few years back, The Curse of Yendor. Developed and published by Ebology LLC, it was released on Steam back in February of 2017. The Curse of Yendor, referring of course to the classic Rogue's Amulet of Yendor, is a classic-style roguelike where you enter into a procedurally generated dungeon, uncover gear and other material, and seek to reclaim the Amulet of Yendor. So yeah, very much inspired by the original Rogue. In terms of plot, you play the apprentice of one of three wizards. One Wizard of Darkness, one of Light, and one of Neutrality. Whichever one you select, you are told that one of the wizards you didn't pick has been corrupted by the Amulet of Yendor and murdered the other one you didn't fear. In fear for your own mentor's life, you journey into the dungeon to face the wizard who took the amulet and take it back from them before they use it to ascend to godhood. So it's kind of a variation on the story from the original Rogue. When you start a new game, you can select a class between a warrior, rogue, and wizard. All are technically apprentices of these wizards, and all of them can cast the same spells. It just affects your hit points and your mana balance. It also affects your starting gear, as well as what tokens affect when you pick them up, tokens being rare things that you unlock on certain levels. You then pick which wizard is your mentor. There are three wizards that each grant a special power and will determine what enemies you face, basically limiting enemies to those aligned with the other two. There's Zosma, the light sorceress, who grants the greater healing power. Hexodus, the dark necromancer, who grants the spell Beam of Death. And finally, Wiscardus, the grey wizard, who grants the spell Grey Wind. After selecting the mentor, you get to pick between difficulty levels casual, normal, hard, and insane. You can then select whether to have permadeath enabled on characters or not, so you can play something more akin to a classic roguelike. Once you've started the game, you're given a quick intro explaining the story, and then dropped into Dungeon Depth 1. On loading each level, you are given a tip screen that you can use to view the various hints. The actual gameplay screen is, I gotta admit, is kind of clunky. The left side is dominated by a tile-based representation of the world around you and the sprites of various enemies and characters. You can mouse over any sprite or tile that screen depicts in order to get a description of what it is, and this also can allow you to click on arrows to move your character. On the right side of the screen, you have the mini-map of the entire area, and beneath that, a description of the level. While levels are procedurally generated, they do have certain themes that define the pattern of rooms, the terrain available, and so on. Beside the map are your stats. You have a level, your mentor's alignment, and your class, as well as your speed rating, which is based on equipped weapons and armor. Your character has 7 main stats: hit points, mana, food, picks, experience, gold, and keys. Hit points are your health, mana is used to activate various spells, food decreases as you move around, while picks are used to mine through certain walls. Experience accrues when you kill enemies and pick up experience scrolls, and levels up when you reach certain amounts of it. Leveling up boosts your hit points and mana. Gold is used to buy items at merchants, and keys are used to open chests. Beneath these things, which are displayed both as numbers and graphs, you have the equipped weapon and armor. Each weapon has a rarity, a level, and a type, which determines its minimum and maximum damage. Armor similarly has a rarity, level, and type, which affects its overall defense rating as well as the amount it reduces the efficiency of your spells. The heavier the armor, the more your spells are reduced. At the bottom of the screen are your various spells and inventory management icons. Each character has access to 3 basic spells: Ice Bolt, Fireball, and Earthquake. These not only do damage to the target, but can affect terrain around them. Fireball can burn things down, Ice Bolt can freeze the ground that allows you to cross certain terrain, and Earthquake can knock down some walls. These can be invaluable to exploring a level, especially since some levels have rooms that you can only access through knocking walls down. Then you get whatever special ability your mentor taught you. Besides this is the Wait a Turn button, which lets you skip a turn. There's also a map button that blows up the mini-map and shows the key to it so you can examine it in more detail. After this is a visible terrain icon that gives you a rundown of the qualities of all visible terrain. The bottom row starts with the Shoot Ranged Weapon command, which is only usable when you actually have a ranged weapon. Then there's the wield wear command that lets you wield or wear items for your inventory. The inventory starts off small with just a 3-item limit, but the limit increases as you pick up bags in the game and can eventually become quite sizable. After this is the drop an item icon, the use stairs icon, and then something that lets you view the jewels that you've picked up. There's finally a general help screen that gives you the hotkeys for everything, and finally the options. Gameplay mostly consists of wandering around, peeling the fog of war back as you do, and fighting monsters as you would in any turn-based roguelike. Again, the speed you perform actions at is determined by your equipped items. There are merchants that you can use to sell items to or purchase items from. Monsters often have special resistances, meaning that you will have to use a variety of slashing, bludgeoning, piercing, and then your 3 basic spell attacks to really do them in. Some can be highly resistant to some attacks, and some can be vulnerable to them. Monsters also have levels and qualities, which affects how much damage they can do, their resistances, hit points, and more. Many parts of a level are concealed by puzzles. Just finding the stairs to the next level can require you to actually solve a puzzle, for instance, before it will even appear. Solving puzzles can often spawn traps and additional monsters, making the exploration of a level more difficult as time goes on. Basically, the more you actually finish of it, the more monsters can appear. It does make for a bit of a variety, however, and between this and areas that are only accessible when you alter terrain by knocking down walls and so forth, makes exploring a level thoroughly take a fair amount of time. Most of the game is driven by picking up various items. Aside from the basic arms and armor, you can pick up gold, food of various types, health, and mana orbs to recharge your mana and health, experience scrolls that grant experience, and keys. As you take damage and use your gear, it begins to degrade, so you'll always want to be on the lookout for upgrades to your equipment as you proceed down to each level. Gameplay is challenging, although relatively easy to get into. I found it easier to get into than many other roguelikes, but the difficulty between levels does ramp up to a considerable degree. I should note that this kind of walks the line between a roguelite and like a basic adventure game, and it's kind of hard to justify calling it an RPG, although it certainly has RPG elements in it in terms of, your standard roguelike elements, so there is that. As far as presentation goes, well, it's certainly colorful. The tiles and sprites are nicely done. I believe they're actually selected from an outside library. The user interface is, as I said, clunky as best. It can be played either with hotkeys on a keyboard or mouse-driven, which is a plus, but it can make for a very chunky-looking display in that regard, since there is an opportunity to click on basically everything. Where the game really falls down, unfortunately, is the soundtrack. There's a background ambience track that plays, and it's really at odds with the look and feel of the rest of the game, like noticeably so. It's really ominous and dark while the rest of the game just isn't. It can be grating after the while as well. It's a pity, really, but fortunately you can go right in and toggle the music off. You can even toggle the text color in case you're having trouble seeing it against certain types of terrain. So where am I with the Curse of Yendor? It's a competent little example. I mean, it's a decent little roguelike, but unfortunately it's nothing really spectacular. If you like the genre and want yet another variation, you probably won't go wrong with it, although I'm not sure I'd set it as even worth the modest price it goes for. If you can get it on sale, though, it'll definitely make it worth taking a look at least for a simple roguelike fan. And on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. Yeah, it's a relatively short one this week, I know, but sometimes it happens. Next week, I will be looking at a different sort of RPG altogether. This has been the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, The Curse of Yendor. As always, I'll throw a link to where you can pick it up below. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye. And if you're still watching this far, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who have supported this channel via Patreon or direct donations throughout the years, without which this channel could not have lasted as long as it has. For those who are feeling particularly generous, you can still support my work through Patreon and now through Subscribestar as well, through the links in the description below.